Hello, my name is Olurotimi Osha. Tomorrow is America's 250th birthday, and it is also the anniversary of the publication of the Declaration of Independence, authored by Thomas Jefferson, of course, who went on to become our third president. And of course, his words and the ideals the Declaration framed, they're supposed to continually guide us today, right? Of course, those ideals pivot on life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and those notions that all men are created equal, notions of pursuing justice. If anybody's read the Declaration of Independence, um, a significant portion of, in fact, the initial grievances, right? Uh, they espouse uh, the Americans' desire for justice, right? The abuses of justice, the injustices they were suffering. Of course, I've done videos explaining the coercive acts imposed by the British Parliament on Massachusetts. The coercive acts were measures, uh, that instantiated judicial abuses. And so you see in the Declaration of Independence, Thomas Jefferson is highlighting the abuses of the courts, the violation of principles of justice, equity, and the rule of law. Now, today, that's I'm not talking about the Declaration of Independence or our presidents. Today, I want to highlight how these ideals of being an American, the notion that we're all created equal, the notion that we're established on principles based on the rule of law, right? Everyone's equal before the law, and so that means there's integrity in our systems, in our laws. That if a person is honest, works hard, that they can live the American dream, right? That we're good neighbors. All of this, right? Uh, all of these principles have been violated by the swatting which I suffered, and especially by a state attorney, John McCarthy of Montgomery County, Maryland, whose actions are the antithesis of all those principles that the Declaration found to be sacred. Sacred, sorry. I'm I've done videos talking about the malicious prosecution by John McCarthy, Montgomery County State Attorney. I filed complaints already, prosecutorial misconduct complaints against him for malicious prosecution, including creating false witnesses, fabricating evidence. I was a victim of a swatting. This is already known that I was a victim of a swatting. I've talked about what a swatting is. A swatting is when someone makes a hoax call, right? A false emergency call to emergency services or to the police, making a falsified report of an ongoing emergency. It can be a hostage crisis, a bomb threat, domestic violence, attempted murder, but it's a hoax. The purpose of the perpetrator, right, the antagonist caller, is to get the police, right, a SWAT team. That's why it's called swatting, right? A SWAT team. People know what a SWAT team is, right? They respond to kidnapping, hostage crisis. You see, they're heavily trained, wearing tactical gear, and so the objective is to get a large police response and a SWAT team. That's why it's called a SWAT team, to the victim's residence, and the victim is unsuspecting. He doesn't know, right? They're just there, and it ends up because of the tension, right? The tension. The SWAT team, the police that respond, they think there's a dangerous situation. They're a heavily armed person who's committing some kind of atrocity. Meanwhile, the victim, who's in his home, they're unaware, they're unsuspecting, they don't know what's going on, and so they're in a fight. It can be a fight or flight state, or they're just they don't know what's going on. They in this world of pranks. I don't know if people remember Ashton Kutcher's show in which he would punk people, right? He'd punk people. So we're living in an era in America where people get punked, right? Just for fun on television, on candid camera. So they don't know what's going on, and so it ends up in a violent situation, because it ends up in a violent situation, sometimes in death and severe injuries. But swatting is a crime. It's a crime. Another instance of swatting is making a false emergency crisis of somebody going through a severe mental health crisis, in which the victim is supposed to be homicidal or suicidal and heavily armed. So that's what Jide Iwarere, Howard University professor, that was a lie he made to Montgomery County Police and to the Montgomery County courts. And then they got my neighbor, Girma Shumi, on May 16th to make another false call to the police. And 40 cops showed up in my home, riot gear, the way they were armed. So I've done videos talking about that. So eventually I was severely injured. One of the police officers who came admitted that his intent was to kill me with his Glock, but apparently he used his taser gun instead. I was shot in the head. You see these lines here on my forehead. They're permanent. They're from they're permanent scarring, because I was shot in the head with a taser dart. So the police officer who intended to use his gun used his taser instead and shot me in the head. He was planning to kill me. He used racial epithets. His name is Police Officer Jeffrey Ray. It was a very violent situation. I didn't know what was going on. I was falsely imprisoned in my home, but it was Jide Iwarere who had made a false call. When I landed in the hospital eventually, I was told, I couldn't, the hospital staff, I was just lucky. I was happy I was alive, right? There was a bandage on my head. I was injured severely. You can see part of the injuries, permanent injuries, scarring all over my body. They injured me. I was brutalized, serious injuries, because they released tear gas, it was some kind of toxin. They just like a chemical bomb into my apartment. The hospital said it was tear gas and pepper spray. It immobilized me, and I was dehumanized. I've done videos expressing that. So that was all a result of the swatting call, the false information and hoaxes call made by Howard University professor Jide Iwarere and his accomplice, an Ethiopian illegal alien, Girma Shumi. Today, what I want to do is talk about how Jide Iwarere conspired with this Girma Shumi to instigate immigration fraud. I've talked about how, upon investigation, my family, people Jide Iwarere claims are his family, have claimed Jide Iwarere is actually an octogenarian. The hospital said Jide Iwarere may have made the false call, filed the false emergency petition, because they think he has dementia, but he's in denial. But in any event, they said, my family have said Jide Iwarere is actually older than my mom. Right? My mom's 85 years old. That's not the age he uses in America. I've seen his certificate of naturalization. So he uses a false age, and it was concerning. But so that's an aspect of immigration fraud, since he falsified his age on his naturalization documents. So, but apart from that, that's not what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about the issue of Girma Shumi, his accomplice. So, when I was in the hospital, after I was raided, assaulted, removed May 16, dumped in the hospital, woke up, bandage on my head, later on, the staff started telling me bizarre stuff that you were threatening to bomb people, you were threatening to kill people and yourself. All of that was BS, that was all lies, right? But the most shocking thing, I thought, okay, they're just gaslighting me. The most shocking thing to me, very distressing, was when, by the way, all of this has been dispelled. It's been debunked that I never threatened to bomb anybody. I was never suicidal. I was never homicidal. Those psychiatrists, Maryland state psychiatrists, have stated I have no mental illness. There's no evidence I've ever had a mental illness. They were the first to tell me, hey, you were the victim of a swatting. Right, those psychiatrists are very smart. There was one of them. I think I'll do a video and talk about this guy's methods. So it was a very smart person. My public defenders, my attorneys have acknowledged that I was a victim of a swatting, but the corrupt Montgomery County State Attorney John McCarthy continues to pursue a malicious prosecution against me. It's called lawfare, in order to prevent me from being able to have the police prosecuted and bringing any suit against the state of Maryland, right, for being a victim of a swatting and for the violation of my constitutional rights. And of course, he's continued to suppress the prosecution of Jide Iwarere, because I reported Jide Iwarere to the FBI and the Department of Justice. Because it's in the jurisdiction of Montgomery County, I was referred, to file a complaint there. And of course, he was charges were brought against him and his accomplice Girma Shumi twice. But the state attorney office, led by John McCarthy, continues to suppress it. So he's obstructing justice, right? So he's doing something illegal. Meanwhile, he continues to pursue lawfare. I'll explain what lawfare is. Lawfare is the malicious and illegal use of the legal systems, right, to wear out an opponent, to make them squander their resources and get them to just get tired, right, and surrender, so they can't pursue a valid civil rights claims. So that's a form of lawfare. So that's what State Attorney John McCarthy and his myrmidons have been pursuing against me. I'm a law-abiding American. As of that day, I was an auditor in the Department of the Navy. I've done videos discussing this. But back to the incident in the hospital. So I was in the hospital, and the staff were making all these bizarre claims, and I was like, okay, you guys are nuts. So what are you talking about? But until a sheriff's deputy then brought me a peace order. I'd never received a peace order before, right? I'm an American citizen, so I've always been law-abiding. And as I said, as of that day, I was working, as of May 16, 2023, I was an auditor in the Department of the Navy, holding a top secret clearance, TSSCI, right? So they don't give those to anybody. So I was a law-abiding person. I'm a law-abiding person now. But they brought me this peace order. Then I saw on the peace order, it was written completely fabricated, perjured. So a guy named Girma A. Shumi claimed, who lived in apartment 506, claimed that on May 14, 2023, as he was walking down the corridor, I assaulted him and kidnapped him, pulled him into my apartment, threw him on the ground, seized his phone, and threatened, told him that I was a cop. Told him I was a cop. If anybody knows me, I'm not a fan of cops. I don't admire cops. I don't think, I didn't get over 4 degrees to misrepresent myself as a cop. But anyway, this is what he wrote down. And he said somehow he managed to escape. He said he managed to escape, right? And at another time, I assaulted him again, asked him why he reported me to the police, right? That why did I report him to the police? All of this he wrote in the peace order. So when I saw it and I was in the hospital, I was stunned. I said, whoa, this is a fabrication. Interestingly, he gave the wrong indication for my weight and all that stuff. And my height, he put 5'7", he put like 180 pounds or something like that. At that time, I was over 240 pounds, because it was after winter. I bulk up, And prior to this, if anybody notices, I was always posting my gym, my workouts. Me being in the gym. So I bulked up for winter, right? Lifting heavy weights, and then two. It was just the beginning. It was not yet summer. We were still in spring. This was May 16, right? May 15, I was at the gym. So I start walking, doing long walks and jogging to shred up for summer. That was what I was doing. I was planning my vacation. I had told my boss that I wanted to take a vacation, a long vacation, because I had built my PTO time or whatever they call it. I had built it up, accumulated it. I hadn't taken any time off. No time off at work. No holiday, no breaks. So I built it up so I could take a long vacation. I told my boss, my mentor, the Auditor General of the Navy, I planned it. I had everything planned, right? Um, so this was what was going on. Meanwhile, this peace order was claiming I was 180 pounds, yeah, or less or something, and 5'7", but it had my name. It had my date of birth. My date of birth at that time was not published anywhere. In the swatting, later on, an investigator would go and help me check, take pictures of the place. Somebody who went to investigate on my behalf. And my wallet had been stolen while I was wrongfully detained. My debit card had been stolen as well. Cash, it was used to withdraw cash from my bank account. So that was wire fraud. These are very serious crimes. My certificate of naturalization was stolen. I'm a naturalized American citizen. My social security card was stolen. So that's identity theft. My US passport ID card was stolen. I have the card. So all of these things were stolen. So that's how this Girma Shumi guy got to know my date of birth. So because he was involved in the theft of my personal identification, right? My property. That was how he got to know my date of birth, my name. I'd never spoken with him before. I lived in that building for about 2 years. I'd never once spoken with him before, right? I just knew he lived down the corridor. He was a drug addict. He always had these red, bloodshot eyes. He can't speak a word of English because later on, when I got out, when I was released, I went to court and challenged the peace order because it was an ex parte peace order. If anything they file against you in America, right, you're entitled, that's your Sixth Amendment right, to face your accuser, to defend yourself. We don't have a bill of attainder. Somebody can't just accuse you of something and then they grant judgment, right? So the peace order was filed. It was an ex parte decision. I was prevented, since I was in the hospital, I was prevented from going to a protest and saying this is a fabrication. So but once I saw it, I called the district court where it was filed, and they told me, okay, that's a crime, perjury, but I have to come over to the commissioner's office where they would issue an arrest warrant for him. They can't take it over the phone. So that should change, right? Because the court was notified, but they never put it on record. But the hospital didn't let me go, right? So I couldn't go. So he gets the peace order, a fabrication. So the whole objective of the swatting and the peace order was to discredit me. I've done videos explaining how the purpose was to discredit me, defame me, and to blackmail me, right? So I've done videos. But Jide Iwarere was a major participant in this. A few days prior to that, he had been calling me, trying to pressure me to withdraw a federal complaint that I had, and I was participating in EEOC complaint and investigation, Office of Inspector General complaint, a couple of senior executives who are from Montgomery County, Maryland, were under investigation, federal investigation for fraud and other misconduct, including sexual harassment, and other forms of fraud and waste, abuse, and mismanagement. So Jide Iwarere had tried to pressure me to withdraw this. I ignored him, but so I received this peace order. I have this peace order, and I see, okay, it's a fraud. I call the district court. They told me that I need to come to the office and do it on oath, that they can't do it over the phone. But once I told them, they should have acknowledged that it was a fraud, and they should have indicated that because it hadn't yet gone to trial, right? But they never did. So the judge granted an ex parte order, right, of the peace order. So Montgomery County, Maryland, has a very corrupt judicial system. Their their second administrative judge, that's the equivalent of the chief judge, was Judge James Bonifant. I filed a judicial complaint against him after I reported him to Maryland's Attorney General Anthony Brown. His office, he asked me to report him to the Maryland Commission on Judicial Disabilities. He's retired now. One of the things they can do is force your retirement, but Montgomery County, Maryland, the criminal justice system, the courts, extremely corrupt. Apparently, I've been reading the literature. Apparently, it is widely known that there's institutionalized corruption in Montgomery County, Maryland. So in any event, I was prevented from leaving, but after I got out, I went and told, I filed a motion, and a judge heard, and Girma Shumi appeared in court. This was sometime in November. The judge said, well, look, it's useless, because I was wrongfully detained, by the way, for a long time. So the judge said, look, the peace order is already expiring. And the judge was very helpful. He was an Asian American. Went out, took a long time, went to get the books. Girma Shumi used a translator. And Girma Shumi was trying to say, oh, this guy is dangerous. He doesn't feel secure, blah, blah. The judge told him to keep quiet. It's not to talk. It's me that he's addressing. But the judge told me ways I should go and report to Girma Shumi, to the police officer. So the judge, because I was testifying on oath, and the judge could see who I was as I identified myself, respected how he acknowledged my representations, he accepted my representations, and he asked me to go and report Girma Shumi to the police station, where they would issue an arrest warrant. They arrest him and charge him with crimes he committed, or I could go to the commissioner's office. So I went and I called, because I was placed under house arrest by Judge James Bonifant, so I couldn't go anywhere. So I called the Montgomery County Police Department. They directed me to a guy called Robert Sheehan. Robert Sheehan at the time, I think he was a lieutenant or something. So I told him, and then he goes, well, this is hearsay, right? That's how he put it. He said, this is hearsay. It's like my word against his, and they can't go and just arrest him like that, because he's going to deny it. He was like, they're like, oh, that he's going to just deny it. So he advised me to go and report it, to the state attorney's office, that if they issue charges against him, then they will arrest him. So I went. Fortunately, the state attorney, and I called the state attorney, told them everything. I solicited the help of various groups, the NAACP in Montgomery County. Their president initially was very alarmed. They had me sign a contract that they were going to support in the investigations. But so initially everything was going well. Then they issued, Montgomery County, state of Maryland, filed charges against Jide Iwarere and Girma Shumi, twice. But an assistant state attorney now told me that, well, she needed more evidence. She didn't want the judge to dismiss it, so she was going to suspend it, right? And when they get more evidence, that they will, they will prosecute, right? So, but apparently, it's the state attorney's office, because with those charges, that negates the false charges Montgomery County filed against me, right? Because it's regarding the same event, right? So it turns out that it's the state attorney that's been suppressing the prosecution of Jide Iwarere. Other bodies are investigating, because I was called by authorities in 2024, and they were asking me if Jide Iwarere's wife is safe, if both of them if both of them are mentally ill. Authorities called me, and I said, I don't know. It might be a case of folie à deux, because I think they both stay alone together. Folie à deux is a French phrase. It means like double madness, when two people are experiencing the same delusions. And from their visit, because while I was wrongfully detained, Jide Iwarere, whom I had told to stop coming, and the correctional officers there said they were going to stop him from coming to see me. You can imagine somebody who filed a false complaint against me coming to see me. He's a witness for the other side. That's 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 harassment, right? So he kept coming. So, but when I said I didn't want to see him anymore, he decides to bring his wife, and they come, and you could see it clearly. You know, there are cameras there. You could see it. Everybody could see it that his wife is crazy. She's out of her mind. So they might have a case of folie à deux. There's something on the internet that says she went missing in 2018, and Greenbelt police indicated that she was in the early stages of Alzheimer's. So it might be a case of folie à deux. Like I said, the physicians, where they were holding me, treating me, when they saw that, well, this guy had fabricated the emergency petition. I hadn't seen it. They just told me, hey, this guy has dementia, but he's in denial. That was what they told me. I'm not a psychiatrist. I don't know. But I know he's crazy because everything he wrote, everything he said, he's defamed me, and he lied to my mom as well. My mom eventually called me. My mom said, while I called her while I was, detained. And the conversation is recorded. My niece, my mom, they said it. They said Jide Iwarere told them police arrested me for drugs, that I'm a drug addict, that I was strung out on cocaine. My mom was so scared. My mom was just talking about, the evidence, blah, blah, blah. She was so nervous that there was drugs or something in my house. I said, that's a lie. That's a lie. Nobody's mentioned anything about drugs. All a fabrication. By the way, the false peace order that this Girma Shumi also wrote, I've not been charged with kidnapping, never been charged with assaulting him, never been charged with impersonating a cop. None of that. It's just in the peace order, and it was suppressed. They tried to seal it. So I can explain, how did this Ethiopian guy who can't speak a word of English, he's a criminal alien from the investigation, he's an illegal alien. How did he get involved with Jide Iwarere in swatting me? Why did he go and make false representations to the police? So from investigation, and by the way, I have a law degree, but this does not constitute legal advice. Girma Shumi did this, and Jide Iwarere got him to do it. And Montgomery County Police also, rogue agents of Montgomery County Police, including Sergeant Charles Drengwitz, right, and his accomplices, they conspired, right, to do this in order to the inducement was to get Girma Shumi a U visa, right, a U visa, and I'll discuss what a U visa is. By the way, I mentioned how I called Robert Sheehan, right, and told him, and he asked me to go and report it to the state attorney's office, the commissioner's office, right. So Robert Sheehan, it turns out, from discovery, because while a case is ongoing, you do what's called discovery. From discovery, I found that Robert Sheehan was one of the 40 cops who came to raided me, and they made false representations. All of them, these cops that are not qualified as psychiatrists, all of them saying, this person has a mental illness, this person has a mental illness, this person did this did this, right? So he was one of those people who fabricated a statement against me under oath. So he's, so you can see why he's also been suppressing. So he's an involved party in the swatting, right, and in the false reports and false statements. So he filed a false incident report as well. And because I was asked to report Sergeant Charles Drengwitz to his boss, so Robert Sheehan was his boss. So I reported Charles Drengwitz for police misconduct. Charles Drengwitz has since retired, right? He retired at 59. That's what they do. Once they start investigating them, they retire. The chief of police of Montgomery County was a black man at that time. He retired prematurely as well in July 2024. Marcus Jones. They start, should have seen because the force that they used to come and get me. 40 cops. You don't go to, anyway, it was a swatting, it was a false crisis call. And that's why I understand that they came the way they did. So I was talking about a U visa. So a U visa is, it's a form of immigration benefit, right, for people who are victims of crimes. They're not American citizens, they're not permanent residents. If you've been a victim of a crime, right, a violent crime, certain qualifying crimes, right, it can be such as a kidnapping, felonious assault, right? A physical assault, sexual assault, robbery. A very violent crime, such that it causes you physical and or mental abuse, right? Then you can benefit from the U visa, right? The U visa, that's what it's called, and so long as you cooperate with law enforcement in prosecuting that crime. So that is why, probably why Girma Shumi got involved, right? Because he's an illegal alien, right? He can't speak any word of English, right? This guy is wild. He's crazy. His eyes were just bloodshot, and the way he assaulted me on May 14th, I was shocked. That was the most shocking thing. I wasn't Jide Iwarere's assault. I knew he had started acting bizarre. I started thinking Jide Iwarere was going senile, right? If you check his ratings, he's a professor at Howard. I don't know why he still teaches. All his students question why he still teaches. His students have said it. He's erratic. He's ill. They say that, and not physically. They don't mean, but they can see he's ill mentally, right? Jide Iwarere, I realized, became a pathological liar. Apparently, that's one of the forms of signs of dementia, right? Dementia, people suffering from dementia, they start to tell lies to make up for gaps in their memory, right? Because they can't remember things, they start to tell lies. And why is this guy allowed to roam the streets like that? He's dangerous, right? He created a swatting. I was almost killed. It's been over 3 years. I haven't worked. He's defamed me. He wanted me to lose my job. I had just told him about this great job opportunity I had. Fantastic, as director of financial crimes, base salary of 250,000. I had all these opportunities lined up, so many different. It was like I had my pick of jobs because I'd worked so hard in America, and I was now reaping the benefits. I wasn't, all this while I was going to school. It wasn't that I didn't want to work, or no, it was because I wanted more opportunities, better opportunities, and that's what America is about. If you're prepared to work hard, roll up your sleeves, and then no one should obstruct you. But Jide Iwarere used Montgomery County and a false emergency call, false crisis call, a swatting, to try and obstruct my career. Not just try and sabotage my career, but in an attempt to probably have me killed. And he wanted to benefit financially. I've done videos regarding this. But what was in it for Girma Shumi, this Ethiopian neighbor I didn't know, who's an illegal alien? The U visa, right? Because he goes to make this false statement, fabricated peace order, completely perjured, claiming he was a victim of a kidnapping and an assault by somebody impersonating themselves as a cop, and he managed to escape, and a theft, that his phone was stolen, all of it fabricated. And I had witnesses, fortunately, and he was charged. Girma Shumi was charged by the state of Maryland, right? And of course, this has been reported to ICE, to Department of Homeland Security. So Jide Iwarere tried to get, he conspired to commit immigration fraud with Girma Shumi. Girma Shumi was, he participated to harm somebody he didn't know, to defame somebody who had never spoken with him, who never harmed him. I'm an innocent man. I never talked to him. I never harmed him. He's the one who assaulted me. He's actually a criminal. I don't know if the guy was his son, but it was a younger Ethiopian guy. I've done videos describing what happened, and I already reported this to the authorities. I don't know the name of the younger person. And of course, they collaborated with Sergeant Charles Grengwitz, who filed a false police report. All of that is criminal. It's called lawfare. It's also malicious prosecution, and it's called it's an 18 USC section 241 and 242 violation, deprivation of rights under color of law, because they did it together. Now, regarding the swatting, the falsehood, information, and hoaxes, that's an 18 USC Section 1038 violation and section in the use of a computer, because my computers were hacked. I've done videos discussing this. That's just 18th USC Section 1030 violation, and all it goes on and on. So many other things. So swatting is a very serious crime. It's a state and it's a federal crime as well. But Jide Iwarere helped. This was trying to conspired with this Girma Shumi to try and advance immigration fraud to obtain a U visa. So U visa, that's a form of that's a form of it's a visa immigration benefit for people who've been victims of an assault, a violent assault on U.S. right in the U.S. right. They've been the victim of certain qualifying crimes, right? Violent crimes, and it can be a sexual assault, felonious assault, like a kidnapping, the sort that Girma Shumi, falsely accused me of in the fraudulent peace order that police never charged me for. So, and so long as he's working with law enforcement, and so he made a false crime report with the help of Sergeant Charles Drengwitz, right, who was trying to pursue an ulterior motive. So a U visa immigration fraud is very serious, right? So I came to realize from the research that apparently many people, domestic violence also, people, victims of domestic violence also qualify for the U visa benefit, immigration benefit. So victims of domestic violence or battered women, women who, who claim to be battered spouses. So people have to be very careful. So there have been instances where people who want to benefit criminally, right, fraudulently from immigration, file false domestic violence abuses, or they file false crime reports. They set people up or they lie, so they can benefit from this U visa. And that's what Jide Iwarere conspired to do with my neighbor, my criminal alien neighbor, the Ethiopian Girma Shumi, and his son. I mean, it's from East Africa. Sorry, East Africa. You could see the features. I don't know him, but I researched the name Girma Shumi, and apparently it's a common Ethiopian name, Girma Shumi. In fact, on the internet, you see there are many people who bear that name, Girma Shumi, Girma A Shumi. So we don't even know if that's his real name, right? But this guy is clearly a criminal. He's a criminal, and I hope he's criminally prosecuted, and I get my day in court to testify, to bring testimony against this criminal. And Jide Iwarere, the Howard University professor, is a criminal himself. He's not who he says he is, and of course he's abused the institutions that he's a part of, including Forcey Bible Church, where he's an elder. I'm disappointed in Forcey Bible Church because none of them has reached out to me to find out, to investigate this matter. That why is there an elder a part of them? Why is this guy? Why has he been charged? Why is there this information about him? They have not tried to conduct an investigation to seek answers. But that's what happens when authority figures, right? They hide behind institutions, and they use these institutions to commit crimes, to perpetrate crimes against law-abiding American citizens in the name of those institutions, including Howard University. He's still employed at Howard University, and it is ironic. Because Howard University is a historically black college, right? America's preeminent historically black college, where the great Webb Du Bois taught, where Thurgood Marshall graduated from. And but Jide Iwarere, he vowed, and this was what he told me, he vowed that he wouldn't let any of his children marry a black American, right? That he preferred them to marry whites than to marry a black American. And you could see two of his sons. You can marry who you want to for love, right? I'm not the sort of person who says, well, black people have to marry black people, white people marry white people. But when somebody disavows an entire race of people who share his skin, right, skin color, and they're his employer, right, it is ironic. It is just quite ironic. But anyway, I leave it at that, and hopefully justice comes sooner than later. My name is Oluroti Miosha, and happy 4th of July Independence in advance. Thank you.